is something all of us can agree on that is a terrible thing. War only takes. It takes sons, fathers, brothers, and anyone in its path. War is indiscriminate. War doesn't care if you're wealthy or poor, a man, woman, or child. War is one of the most organized, well-constructed machines mankind has ever created, and its goal is only to destroy, to take away any and everything that opposes it. Yet war is something we fantasize all the time, whether it be through books, movies, TV shows, video games, and even in our own fantasies. We glorify war through our media, whether it be for good or bad intentions. But those who have lived in it know all too well war isn't a battle of good versus evil or for glory. War is a violent, self-contained world where the only thing that matters is the survival of yourself and for those around you. There is no good versus evil in the battleground. The most evil and vile destructive things a man can do is done in war. There are no victors in war, only victims.
Did you guys like that monologue? I wrote that up trying to fit the tone of the video, because while this video isn't about the morals of war, it is about how well do these older Call of Duty games capture that feeling when you play a World War II game. You know that feeling that I'm talking about if you played any World War II game from the early to mid 2000s, whether it be old school Call of Duty or the Medal of Honor games. Also, I do know that there are more World War II Call of Duty games like Finest Hour, Big Red 1, Call of Duty 3, and World War II from 2017, but this video isn't really about each Call of Duty game specifically. It's more about which Call of Duty game that I played that I think does an excellent job of making you feel immersed and gives you that certain feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but again, you know what I'm talking about if you've played any of these games. I'm going to be starting with the first Call of Duty, maybe talk about the gameplay a little bit, but my main focus is going to be about the atmosphere of these games. So let's go ahead and talk about the first Call of Duty. You know, something I really miss about the old COD games was when they used actual footage from documentaries to add context and reference to what you were doing in the game. It combined this element of education and fun, and it really got you immersed in each level that you played. It made you feel like you were part of a squad getting debriefed before going to war. And one thing I will say that early COD does that I really like compared to the newer CODs is that each level felt like a close quarters battlefield rather than some linear shooting gallery. Enemies actually take cover and stay behind cover, shoot you from cover, and throw tons of grenades at you. The enemy AI in old COD was no joke. Hell, even your ally AI was actually pretty good too. I actually found myself really relying on my AI allies to help me fight in these battlegrounds. I must say, for an old game, the gunfighting can be pretty intense. I played all of these COD games on normal because I didn't want to suffer for this video, but either I'm just ass or maybe rushed these conflicts, but I actually died quite a bit playing through these games. But as for the gameplay, I can't really say much because the gameplay is pretty much the same from the first COD all the way up to World at War. But what does change over each Call of Duty is its presentation. Playing through the first Call of Duty, I can definitely see where a lot of the remnants of Medal of Honor came in here to a new start. Medal of Honor went down the road of you being the lone wolf doing everything, whereas Call of Duty went down the route of trying to establish itself as more of an authentic military shooter by giving you teammates to help you in each level, rather than doing all that lone wolf stuff. And I will say, as someone who was a Medal of Honor fan back in the day, I do really like the more team-based design that they went for Call of Duty. Now, granted, it's nothing like Brothers in Arms in terms of team play mechanics, but it's still cool feeling like you're part of a larger conflict than feeling like you're just more of a one-man army. But how well do these games make you feel like you're in World War II? You can have all the cool and fun gameplay, but if you aren't immersed, then you really can't feel like you're fighting these battles. And I gotta say, for as old as these games are, they do a really good job at immersing you into being a soldier fighting in these conflicts. There's constant gunfire around every corner, both from the enemy and your allies. And even when you aren't fighting, there's combat ambience going on, making it feel like there's a war out there that others are fighting instead of making it feel like only you are in this war. And the presentations on each of these levels really go out of their way to be grand. There's planes going by over your head, there's explosions going off everywhere, there's Germans surrounding you in every gunfight, every level is ravaged in warfare with destroyed buildings, bombed out fields, and landscapes scarred by warfare. I really like the locations the game takes you during these conflicts. The first COD, it takes you to the cold, bombed out urban areas in the Russian campaign, to the farmhouses and hedge fields on the American side, and the British side taking you on almost all fronts for Special Forces missions. Then in COD 2, it's relatively the same, except in some of the British missions, it takes place in Africa, which I did really like those parts. And of course, I can't forget the Utah Beach invasion mission for the American campaign, which was really cool and intense. And as I was playing through these games, I was thinking to myself, they just don't make them like they used to. Playing through COD 1 and 2, I could see the amount of effort they put into these games to feel authentic and immersive. And they don't try by trying to make them as realistic as possible with their graphics or gameplay, just in their presentation. As I mentioned earlier, every level had documentary footage giving you context as to what you were about to do and just educating you on these battles during World War II. And every battle is designed in a way to make it feel like you're fighting in this great war. And I know that during this era of COD, people were getting sick of the World War II era, but still though, the presentation in these games are something that feels like what's missing in modern COD. And don't mistake me as saying that there isn't any presentation in modern COD. There is, lots of it, but honestly it just feels way too Hollywoody at times. Every COD feels like it's trying to be bigger and more complex than the last, but at the same time, every new one feels so safe and never wants to explore darker themes. That's why I think this COD stands out amongst the rest of them. World at War is not just another World War II COD game, this is a documentary. Now, I'm sure you've seen several videos talk about how great World at War was, and I'm not the first and won't be the last to tell you how great it was, but what truly separates World at War from the rest is how World at War treats World War II. Every single World War II game has glorified it in some way. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with glorifying the heroes who fought in that war and destroyed the enemy, but we all know that their war was not in any way like what it is in video games or Hollywood. World at War has not been the only COD game that's explored the darker themes of war, but the only World War II game that has. World at War is a game that big modern studios are too scared to make now. Whenever I play through COD 1 and 2, while I did enjoy them, I couldn't help but feel like the whole experience had been doctored in a way to feel like some great journey where it's a battle of good versus evil. And then you start a World at War and the game gives you the 1,000-yard stare at just the main menu screen. And any one of you who played this game as a kid is forever haunted by that main menu song. I'm not even lying when I tell you this, that main menu song legitimately terrified me as a kid. There have been many games that scared me as a kid while playing it, but only World at War has been the only game to scare me before I even got to play it. And the gameplay translates perfectly with the menu theme. World at War is easily one of the darkest and grittiest COD games out there. Nothing compares. And while the Russian side of the war is back in here, they did something very different that very few other games did, and that was the Pacific Theater. Even though they do have the Eastern Front and the Pacific Theater, they held no punches back. The documentary footage is back, but instead of just being like a TV show, they use them as fragment bits for the loading screen while the custom characters in these games talk about what's going on and all that stuff. But even the footage, they also hold no punches back. There's clips in here where people are getting executed and shit. It does not fuck around. And even the first mission is you getting beat by the Japanese and your comrade's throat being slit. And then, that's not even the end of it. The first mission for the Russians is you lying in a fountain full of dead soldiers, and Germans executing ones that are alive while air raids come in and bomb what's ever left of Stalingrad. There's not a single mission that doesn't end with lots of gore and violence. World at War completely changes the game and how World War II material is handled, and I think any future World War II game in any upcoming future needs to be just like World at War when it comes to how it handles the idea of conflict. World at War set the bar for when it comes to handling World War II material. World at War doesn't glorify it. It portrays it for exactly what it is. The utmost hatred and violence a human can comprehend and inflict upon one another until the other person is dead. And the one character that inhabits the mentality of war the most is, of course, Reznov. Every chance he gets, he leaves no mercy. If there is a German to kill, he kills them. No forgiveness, no mercy, no one survives. I know that relatively the whole point of the video was to talk about the aesthetics of World War II COD games, but I want to take a moment to talk about just how fun some of these levels are and how amazing the music is for this game. There's almost no level that I really hated in this game. Honestly, my least favorite might be the tank mission, and that's because the tank mission is really no different than the last ones from the older COD games. I just kind of feel like they had to maybe pad out the runtime for the game, or maybe they were a level short and just said, fuck it, let's throw in a tank mission. But probably one of my most favorite missions has to be Black Cats. And that's just because of the music in this level. I was jamming the whole time this beat was going off. Also, the Reichstag mission is an absolute masterpiece. This revision of it in World at War from the first COD is so damn good. The first COD didn't really give you the scale of how gigantic this building truly was. And I get that it was 2003, so technology was pretty limited at the time. So World at War takes up the torch to reimagine this level, and they just absolutely deliver on it. Playing through these old CODs have really been a fun look into the past, and not only just Call of Duty games, but in how video games were just made back then. And not even in just the they were made better back then talk that everyone talks about nowadays. I'm talking about how they're made, literally. Nowadays, game engines have dynamic lighting and physics built into the engines, but looking back on these older games, you can see that all of that back then was just smoke and mirrors. The skyboxes were just low-resolution images of sky and clouds or distant villages or whatever location you were in. The levels never had massive boundaries that extended past where the level was taking place. And nighttime levels just had a nighttime image, and the post effects were done in a way to simulate nighttime. It's also really cool to see all the techniques used to create these illusions that at the time looked and felt real. And as someone who finds game development very interesting, all this stuff is just so cool to look at and observe. Because it shows a time long forgotten. A time where instead of just having these tools that just do all this stuff for you, they had to actually have the skills and understanding to make these things look and feel authentic. And not that these techniques just being a default thing modern engines can do is a bad thing. In fact, it's quite a good thing. It makes things much easier for developers to deal with and allows them to focus their attention elsewhere. And it shows the massive technology leap we've really had since then. I found it really cool. I found everything in this video really cool and interesting to talk about, at least to me. So if you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button to help boost me in the algorithm. And subscribe if you might be interested in the type of stuff I do, or I make commentaries on things I find interesting and video games I like. So, with all that said, thank you all for watching, and I shall see you when the next video drops.